Most people trying to lose belly fat focus on the wrong foods. They spend all their energy cutting things out while ignoring the foods that actually makes fat cells release stored fat. I've worked with tens of thousands of people trying to lose stubborn belly fat, and some of the fastest breakthroughs happen when they start adding a few specific foods to their meals. So in this video, I'm going to show you 10 everyday foods that can help you release and burn belly fat, what each one does inside the body, and the simple ways that you can use them so that they actually work. And make sure to stick around for number 7 because it targets a hormonal shift that quietly drives belly fat after the age of 50. Now, before we get started, if you want some simple recipes using the same foods that I'm about to show, I put together a free guide with several delicious fat-burning meals that you can make at home. These recipes use many of the foods that we're going to cover in this video, and I'll show you easy ways to turn them into meals that actually support fat loss. I will include a link to that download in the description below, so be sure to grab your free copy. Okay, to start, I'm going to show you a food that might be the last thing you'd expect on a fat loss list, but it's one of my favorites. Most people think of this as nothing more than a dessert ingredient, but in its raw form, it can actually activate the same fat-burning system in your body that gets turned on when you exercise, and that food is cacao. Now, I'm not talking about a candy bar or a bag of chocolate chips. I'm talking about raw cacao, the actual bean that all chocolate comes from before the sugar and the processing get added in. When you eat the right kind, it comes packed with fat-burning compounds called flavonols. Flavonols trigger your nervous system to release the same hormones that your body pumps out during a hard workout. And when these hormones flood your system, they signal your fat cells to open up and release stored fat so it can be burned for energy. Now, the problem is most commercial chocolate has had the flavonols processed right out and replaced with sugar. That's why you want to go straight to the source. The two easiest options are cacao powder and cacao nibs. Cacao powder, you can stir right into a smoothie, mix it with plain Greek yogurt, or even add a tablespoon to your morning coffee for a mocha-style flavor with no sugar. About 1 to 2 tablespoons a day is a great starting point. Cacao nibs are little crunchy pieces of the actual bean, and you can sprinkle them on top of yogurt, oatmeal. Our favorite in the household is a smoothie bowl, or you can just eat them like a handful, just like nuts. They've got a very rich but slightly bitter chocolate taste with a nice crunch. And there's a fun bonus. If you want something that actually feels like a dessert, look for a stevia sweetened dark chocolate bar that's over 70% cacao or higher. Another way to get an easy source of it. No sugar, all the flavonols, and it genuinely tastes great. And that's about as close to a fat-burning dessert as you're ever going to get. Just keep in mind that cacao does contain some caffeine, so try to enjoy it a little bit earlier in the day rather than maybe right before bed, because poor sleep is one of the fastest ways to stall fat loss. Next, one of the hidden reasons why people can't lose belly fat is because their fat tissue is under stress. When fat tissue gets stressed from things like poor diet, lack of sleep, or sitting all day, it starts sending out signals that basically tells your fat cells to lock down and hold on to everything. Think of it kind of like a traffic jam inside your body. Fat is trying to leave your cells, but it can't get out. The food that helps clear that jam is salmon. Salmon is loaded with EPA and DHA. These are so crucial. The two most powerful omega-3 fatty acids. These are special fats that help calm down the stress signals inside fat tissue. And when those signals drop, fat cells become much more willing to release stored fat so that your body can burn it for energy. That's why people who regularly consume omega-3s often see greater reduction in belly fat over time. Now, when you're buying salmon, wild caught is usually the better option. It tends to have healthier balances of the fats and fewer contaminants than farm-raised fish. And if fresh salmon feels expensive, canned wild salmon works just as well and costs a fraction of the price. Aim for 2 to 3 servings per week, about the size of the palm of your hand. Bake it, grill it, or toss canned salmon into a salad, mix in some mayonnaise, salt, pepper. There's a lot of different ways that you can enjoy it. And keep this omega-3 idea of unlocking fat cells in the back of your mind, because later on in the list, there is another food that delivers even more of them for a fraction of the cost. All right, number 3. This next one might surprise you because most people have never connected this food to fat loss. Researchers have discovered that people who stay lean tend to have higher levels of specific gut bacterium called Akkermansia muciniphila. You don't have to remember the name. Just know that people who have more of it tend to handle blood sugar better and carry less belly fat. And one of the fastest ways to support that bacteria is by eating fermented foods. Foods like kimchi and sauerkraut. These foods contain live bacteria that help improve the overall environment in your gut. And when that environment improves, beneficial bacteria, including Akkermansia, tend to grow more easily. And now here's the mistake most people make. They grab the jar sitting on a regular shelf at the store. But those versions are usually heat treated, which kills a lot of the live bacteria. So look for kimchi or sauerkraut in the refrigerated section of the store. It'll say raw or unpasteurized or live cultures on the label. You don't need much, just 2 to 3 tablespoons with a meal. It's a nice little side dish with each meal. You could add it to a salad. You could eat it alongside a protein or just have a forkful as a side. It's one of the easiest ways to support your gut health while you're working on belly fat. Next, I'm going to show you the number 1 food on this list that starts working within minutes of eating it. You know how when you eat something spicy, your face gets a little warm, you might even get a little sweat going, your body temperature actually rises? It's not a sensation. That's your metabolism ramping up and burning extra calories to produce that heat. The compound responsible is called capsaicin, and you'll find it in cayenne pepper and other hot peppers. Capsaicin activates receptors called TRPV1 that are found all over your body, including in your fat tissue. And when those receptors get triggered, your metabolic rate temporarily increases, and your body also starts activating brown fat. That's the type of fat that burns energy instead of storing it. So you're getting a double effect from one food. Now, the good news is you don't need a huge amount. Even about a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper added to a meal can have a huge effect. Sprinkle it on eggs, stir it into soups, mix it into dressings, or add it to roasted vegetables. And if cayenne is a little bit too spicy for you, start with milder peppers like a jalapeno and then work your way up. Your tolerance usually builds faster than people expect. Next, I want to show you a food that does something most fat loss foods can't. Talking about lentils. Beans and lentils have a rare combination you almost never see in one food. A single cup gives you about 18 grams of protein and 15 grams of fiber. The protein helps your body hold on to muscle while you're losing fat, and the fiber slows down how quickly sugar hits your bloodstream, which helps keep insulin low and your body in fat burning mode longer after each meal. But here's the part that makes lentils really stand out. They contain resistant starch. It's a type of starch that doesn't get digested normally. Instead, it passes through to your gut where your bacteria ferment it and turn it into a compound that activates the same fat burning switch your body uses during exercise and fasting. So lentils are literally giving you some of the metabolic benefits of a workout. And here's a tip that makes them even more powerful. If you cook the lentils or the beans and then let them cool before you eat them, the resistant starch content goes up. So making a batch ahead of time and then eating them cold in a salad or as a side is actually better for fat loss than eating them straight off the stove. Aim for a 1/2 to 1 full cup of cooked lentils a few times a week. You can use them as a base for a meal, mix them into salads, blend them into a thick stew, or make lentil-based patties like a burger. Next, I want to show you a carb that does the exact opposite of what most carbs do inside your body. Most carbs spike your blood sugar, which raises insulin, which tells your body to store fat. But there's a type of carb that actually supports fat burning instead, and that's sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes produce a hormone called adiponectin, which is like a master switch for your metabolism. When levels are high, your body gets better at burning fat and managing blood sugar. When levels are low, fat storage ramps up, especially around the belly. And here's the frustrating part. The more belly fat you carry, the lower your adiponectin tends to drop. So it becomes a cycle that gets harder to break the longer it goes on. Fortunately, sweet potatoes help push that balance back in the right direction. And like I said, it doesn't behave like other carbs in your body. One medium sweet potato is only about 100 calories, and it's packed with fiber and the nutrients that help keep your blood sugar stable. So instead of the sharp blood sugar spikes that you get from many refined carbs or regular potatoes, the energy is released much more gradually. And just like lentils, if you cook sweet potatoes and then let them cool before eating them, some of the starch forms into that resistant starch. So roasted sweet potatoes in a cold salad or a meal prepped ahead of time can actually work very well here. here. One medium sweet potato with a meal is usually plenty. You can bake them, you can roast them, you can mash them, or you can cube them up. That's what we usually do, and put them into a salad or put them into a bowl. You do get a little bit of sugar content, so don't overdo sweet potatoes, but you can get a lot of benefits, especially to support your hormones. All right, number 7. Now, this is the one that I told you to stick around for at the beginning, and it's especially important if you're a woman over the age of 50. Here's a pattern I see all the time. A woman hits her late 40s or early 50s, and suddenly belly fat starts piling on, even though nothing about her diet or exercise has changed. What's actually happening is that her estrogen levels are dropping during menopause. And when estrogen drops, the body starts redirecting fat storage straight to the midsection. Unfortunately, calorie restriction won't fix a hormonal shift like that. But there's a food that contains natural plant compounds called isoflavones that can partially step in and fill that gap. And that food is edamame. Isoflavones can actually bind to estrogen receptors in your body and mimic some of estrogen's effects. That's a big deal because it directly addresses one of the main hormonal drivers of belly fat storage after menopause. A single cup of shelled edamame gives you about 17 grams of protein, 8 grams of fiber, and a solid dose of isoflavones. Steam them as a snack, toss them into a stir fry, add them into a grain bowl, or blend them into a dip. They're easy to keep in the freezer, and they're ready in about 5 minutes. Just be sure that you get them non-GMO. Soybeans are very genetically modified, so we want to make sure they're non-GMO, organic if you can. And if you're a man watching this video and worry about soy negatively affecting you, rest assured that normal food portions, just like a cup of edamame, does not affect male hormone levels. You have to eat an extremely large amount of them in order for that to become a concern, so don't skip the edamame, especially with that much protein and that much fiber. All right, number 8. Now, this next one is going to change how you think about snacking because there's something happening inside this food that the nutrition label can't account for. Most people avoid almonds when they're trying to lose weight because they look at the label and they think they're too high in calories. But the USDA actually tested this, and what they found kind of shocked the nutrition world. Your body only absorbs about 129 calories from a serving of almonds. Yet, there's 170 calories listed on the package. That's roughly 25% fewer calories than what the label says. And the reason is fascinating. Almonds have these incredibly tough cell walls that act like tiny vaults around the fat inside each cell. And when you chew and digest them, a huge chunk of that fat never gets released. It stays locked inside those cell walls, and it passes right through your body without being absorbed. So almonds are one of the only foods where the calorie count on the label is actually wrong. But it gets better than just a calorie trick. In a 12-week clinical trial, people on the exact same calorie-restricted diet who ate about a quarter of a cup of almonds daily lost significantly more belly fat than the group who didn't eat almonds. Same calories, more fat loss. Quarter a cup is not very much, though. It can sneak up on you fast. Researchers believe that because the monounsaturated fat in almonds has a higher fat oxidation rate, meaning that your body prefers to burn it instead of storing it, especially around the belly, that is why it happened. Now, here's an important detail. This only works with whole almonds, not almond butter. When almonds get ground into butter, those cell walls get completely destroyed, and then your body absorbs every single calorie. So the whole form is what gives you the advantage. About a quarter of a cup, that's roughly 23 almonds, makes a perfect snack. Eat them mid-morning between breakfast and lunch, and they'll keep your blood sugar stable and your appetite in check straight through to your next meal. Keep a bag at your desk, in your car, or in your purse so that you always have them on hand. Next, I want to show you a food that works through an organ most people never connect to belly fat. Your liver. Your liver doesn't just process the food you eat, it also helps break down and remove excess hormones from your body, including estrogen. And when that process slows down, those leftover hormones can start contributing to stubborn fat storage around the belly. This is where broccoli becomes helpful. Broccoli contains a compound called sulforaphane. Sulforaphane helps activate the systems your liver uses to break down and remove unwanted compounds, including excess hormones. So when those systems are working well, your body is better able to keep hormone levels balanced, and that can make it easier for stubborn belly fat to start releasing. Now, how you prepare broccoli actually matters quite a bit. If you boil it until it becomes real soft and mushy, a lot of the beneficial compounds are lost. Light steaming for 3 to 4 minutes works much better. And there's a small trick to increase the benefit even more. Chop the broccoli, let it sit for about 10 minutes before cooking it. It activates an enzyme that helps form more sulforaphane before heat slows the process down. Aim for 1 to 2 cups a few times per week. Steam it, roast it with a little olive oil, toss it into stir fries. We love doing that one. Or chop it raw into salads. Our family just ends up eating it raw quite often. Number 10, and now for the last food on the list, and I saved what might be the biggest surprise for the end. It's a food most Americans completely overlook, and it might be the single most nutritionally powerful food that you can buy for just under $2. Talking about sardines. Now, I know sardines, right? Not everyone's going to love that. But hear me out, because the research on this one is hard to ignore. In a clinical trial out of Barcelona, researchers followed 152 adults over the age of 65 who were pre-diabetic. Everyone was put on the exact same diabetes prevention diet. The only difference was that half the group added 2 cans of sardines per week. After 1 year, the percentage of people at very high risk for type 2 diabetes in the sardine group dropped from 37% all the way down to 8%, while the group without sardines barely changed. And the sardine group also had lower insulin resistance, higher good cholesterol, lower triglycerides, lower blood pressure. And remember, both groups were eating the exact same base diet. Sardines were the only difference. So what makes them so powerful? It's not one nutrient, it's the combination. Sardines deliver omega-3 fats, taurine, calcium, and vitamin D all in the same food. When researchers believe that these nutrients work together in ways that you just can't fully replicate with supplements. The omega-3s calm the stress signal in fat tissue, the same effect we talked about earlier with salmon, which helps fat cells release stored fat. Taurine helps your body respond better to insulin and manage blood sugar. And the calcium and the vitamin D help regulate the hormonal signals that tell fat cells whether to store fat or release it. All of that for $1 or $2 a can, compared to $10 or $15 for a fillet of wild-caught salmon. So if you want to get the most out of them, aim for 1 to 2 cans per week. You can add them on crackers or mash them into a salad, like a Caesar salad, toss them into a pasta, or mix them in with a tomato sauce. If you're buying them, look for sardines packed in olive oil or water, and avoid the ones packed in soybean oil. And if the taste is strong at first, mix them into something with bold flavor, like a tomato sauce or a lemon garlic dressing. Most people find their taste adjusts pretty quickly once they start eating them regularly. I'm not a huge sardine fan, neither is Nurse Livingood. That's why we do use fish oil supplements made from small fish like sardines, getting our omegas and getting our turmeric in all at the same time. That's what I more do on a daily basis, but it's hard to ignore real food and real fish like sardines. Now, these 10 foods can absolutely help your body release and burn belly fat, but the foods that often have the biggest impact are the ones you eat first thing in the morning. That's because your first meal of the day helps set the tone for how your body handles fat and sugar for the next several hours. Get that first meal right, and your body's much more likely to stay in fat burning mode. Get it wrong, and it can push your metabolism towards storage before the day even really begins. So if you're serious about losing belly fat, watch my other video, Eat These 10 Breakfast Foods Every Day to Get Rid of Belly Fat. In it, I will show you the exact breakfast foods that train your body to burn fat from the moment you wake up, and the mistakes most people make that cancel out the benefits before lunch. It also includes a free breakfast guide with delicious fat loss recipes that you can start using today. I'll include a link to that video here. Click to watch it next, and I'll see you there.